So this diagram that we have in front of us gives the entire frequency range. It is called electromagnetic spectrum or electromagnetic frequency spectrum. You can see that the lowest frequency that can be shown on this range starts from 30 Hz, and the highest frequency goes up to 300 gigahertz, and it can further be extended in the form of some other types of waves. So we have frequency axis as this lower line, and this upper line represents the wavelength. Now I'm sure everyone knows the relationship between frequency and wavelength. It is given as wavelength lambda is nothing but speed of light c divided by frequency. The speed of light is nothing but 3 into 10 raised to 8 meters per second upon frequency. So you can see that lambda, which is the wavelength, and frequency, if you multiply them, it will always result into a constant value, which is speed of light. And that means both are inversely proportional to each other. So if I increase the frequency on this lower axis as we go towards right, the wavelength will keep on reducing. So the entire frequency range is divided into various slots. The very first slot is called ELF. It stands for extremely low frequency. The range for ELF goes from 30 Hz to 300 Hz. This next slot is from 300 Hz to 3 kilohertz, which is called VF, which stands for voice frequencies. The human speech or the human voice consists of frequencies from 300 Hz to 3 kilohertz approximately, and hence it is given a very specific name as voice frequencies. The next lot is VLF, which stands for very low frequencies. It ranges from 3 kilohertz to 30 kilohertz. The next is LF, MF, and HF. These three slots are called low frequency, medium frequencies, and high frequencies, and they range from 30 kilohertz to 300 kilohertz is LF, 300 kilohertz to 3 megahertz is medium frequencies, and 3 megahertz to 30 megahertz is the range for high frequencies. After that, we have VHF and UHF, which stand for very high frequencies and ultra high frequencies. Very high frequencies range from 30 megahertz to 300 megahertz, and ultra high frequencies range from 300 megahertz to 3 gigahertz. Many of the recent wireless protocols use frequencies around 3 gigahertz, and hence they fall under UHF or also sometimes under SHF frequency range. SHF stands for super high frequencies, which range from 3 gigahertz to 30 gigahertz. And one more slot which is defined in terms of the values of frequencies is from 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz, which is called extremely high frequencies, in short EHF. So as we go from 30 Hz towards 300 gigahertz, we get these various slots of frequencies, and you can see that the wavelength, which starts from 10 raised to 7 meters, it goes down to 10 raised to minus 3 meters as we reach to the end of extremely high frequencies. The frequencies are chosen to be multiples of 3 or 30 because the speed of light is 3 into 10 raised to 8. Because of this, we get very simple values for wavelengths. You can see all the wavelengths are simply the powers of 10. Now we have few more groups. After EHF, we have something called as millimeter waves. Millimeter waves is a special band of frequencies. Millimeter stands for the values of wavelength this frequencies will have. You can see here the wavelength starts from 10 raised to minus 3 meter, which is 1 millimeter. So this band from 10 raised to minus 3 up to 10 raised to minus 4 meters is called millimeter waves. We have one more very specific group which is called infrared. Infrared waves will again have the wavelength starting from 10 raised to minus 6 meters up to 0.7 into 10 raised to minus 6 meters. So this very specific group of wavelengths and corresponding frequencies will be called infrared. We then have one group of frequencies which is of visible light. The visible light, which is visible to us, forms the frequencies in the range 375 to 750 terahertz. That's because the wavelength will now go down to 0.4 to zero point 0.8 micrometer. So from millimeter, when you move towards visible light, the wavelength goes down to micrometer, and the frequency increases to terahertz. Gigahertz is 10 raised to 9. Terahertz is nothing but 10 raised to 12 hertz. And further, if you reduce the wavelengths, we have signals like X-rays, gamma rays, cosmic rays, etc. So that's whole thing, mainly from 300 hertz to 30 hertz to 300 gigahertz, is called electromagnetic frequency spectrum.